What is good, guys, man? Thank you for tuning back into the channel, man. If you're new, make sure you hit that sub button down below to be notified for every single video that I drop, man. And listen, y'all like these police officer videos and whatnot. This is actually his last story on his YouTube channel. I think his YouTube channel is called BMIC. If y'all want to go look it up, if I can remember, I put his link down below in the description so y'all can go look at it, man. But this is called Spooky Story 1, Part 1. And I reckon they got all the stories on here. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Y'all comment as the video goes on and let me know what y'all think, man. Let's get into it.
All right, story time. So a lot of people ask, like, what it's one of the scariest calls you've been on. Now, there's a lot, but this one is like, it's hard to explain. It was one of like the first, like, yeah, fuck it, I'm not sleeping tonight now moments. And it was a chick that was missing from a town like 3 hours away. She really didn't have any ties here. She hadn't been here in like years and years and years. But they said that occasionally she visits her grandparents' abandoned farm to hang out, and that they wanted a welfare check done at this address. So I get there, and it's like midnight. It's starting to rain, not really like a heavy rain, but more like a light drizzle, a little windy. It's around, Halloween time, so it's kind of that spooky atmosphere. And I go down the house, which happens to be on a gravel road. It's a dead-end road, and it's the only house on that road, out in the middle of nowhere. So I go out there, I pull in the driveway, and I can't even see the house. The grass is 4 or 5 feet high. But the interesting thing is I see a path, like a tire path that was fresh right down the driveway. And I thought that was weird because I know nobody's lived in this house for like the last 20 or 30 years. So I drive down the path, and sure as shit, my headlights, pick up the back of her car. I run the plate, check it. Yep, it's 100% her car. Get out, look through her car, and there's like nothing in there. It's clean. So I'm like, what the fuck? What is she doing out here? So I go to the house, and like I said, the house is abandoned. I mean, there's windows busted out. I'm looking through the windows. It's not inhabitable. There's nobody living there. There's no furniture. I'm pretty sure I see a raccoon looking at me. I'm like, okay, she's definitely not in there. So then I go to the barn. And this is where it gets interesting. So I go to the barn, and as I get closer, I can hear music. And not like pop music or like regular country music or like rock music, but like the creepy old classical country music. So that just kind of set the mood right there. And I can't open the barn door. It's locked. There's no way really to get in there without, breaking through it. So I'm looking through the cracks and shit, and there's something big swaying back and forth, hanging. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sakes. I'm like, this ain't creepy enough. I'm all by myself. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to check it out. I got to confirm it. So, okay. All right. So, I can't like get through the barn door, and there's a little opening above the barn door, probably 8 feet in the air. So what I do is I go back and I get my squad car. I drive around her car. I go to the barn, and I actually stand up. I get on the hood of my squad car so I can look through that hole and peek in. And when I do that, I'm a little tripped out because, I see this large shadow swinging back and forth. Come to find out, it's the light in the barn had snapped off, and it was hanging and swinging back and forth because of the wind. So I'm like, oh, thank fucking God. But that creepy music just kind of did it for me. So I hop in through the window. I unlock myself from the barn. I can go in and out of the barn door now. And as I'm looking through the barn, there's goats and sheep in there that kind of scare the shit out of me. But, aside from that, she's not in there. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go to the end of the barn, and I look out the back door of the barn, and no shit, there's a mowed path clear back into the timber. None of the grass around in this 4 or 6 acre parcel of land is mowed except this path from the barn to the timber. And in the horizon of the timber, I see a fire. I'm like, fuck. So, I'm like, okay. So, I call dispatch. I tell them what I'm doing. And I go out there by myself. And as I get to the timber, there's shadows and there's weird noises and there's, my mind's getting messed with and I'm, So I get out there in the timber to where there's this fucking bonfire. And I don't mean like a little campfire. I mean a bonfire. They got pallets and pallets and pallets stacked up and this fire is blazing and raging and there's nobody there. Like it looks like I'm walking into a seance or like this chick's a witch or something. And there's nobody there. Not even a bag of marshmallows. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So then I hear this like blood curdling scream thing, and it's coming from this camper that I now see that's in the shadows by like the property line in the timber, and just barely can you see the firelight onto the camper. And I'm like, motherfucker, here we go. You're a cop, you can do this. So now my gun's out and I go walking up there and there's no lights on in the camper or nothing. And alright, so I get up there and I'm getting ready to kick in the door, and then I hear that freaking scream again that scares the piss out of me, and it's a goddamn peacock. And it jumps out from underneath the camper, and I damn near almost shot it. And I'm like, fuck this, what the fuck, I'm done, I don't get paid enough for this, I'm leaving, I don't know where she's at, it can wait till morning. And so I start walking back, and I'm walking back through the by the fire, then through the timber, then back through the barn, and I come back out through the barn, and I lock up the barn like it was, and I go back to my squad car, and I turn around, and I'm getting ready to leave, and then all of a sudden, there's a fucking guy standing right in the middle of my headlights. Just boom, right like a horror movie. Like, you're driving, all of a sudden you look and there's somebody right there. Yeah, and I went, fuck. And I had my seatbelt on, and I couldn't take it off because I was like, holy shit, I was panicking. And the guy looks like he's lost. Like, he's just like, what the fuck, who is that? Because I happen to have an unmarked vehicle at the time. So I get my seatbelt off and my gun's out because I don't know what's going on right now, and I'm looking for a chick, not a guy. And let's not forget, we're at an abandoned property. So I get out and I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm looking for such and such, that girl. And I'm like, well, that makes two of us. Well, who the fuck are you and how'd you get here? Like, I know you didn't just walk out here. He said, my car's at the end of the driveway, I just walked up the tracks, the tire tracks. He's like, I didn't know if I could get my car back out since it's wet and stuff. And I'm like, well, why are you looking for her? And he's like, well, we're supposed to be going on a date. And I'm like, at midnight in this county in the middle of nowhere? And he's like, yeah, she's having a bad time. We met on like Tinder or Bumble or something. And she told me that she'd be out here, that she's camping. And I'm like, well, she ain't in the camper. She ain't in the house. She ain't in the barn. She ain't by the fire. Good luck. You go look for her. Let me know if you find her. Well, then his phone starts ringing. It's her. She's at the bar in the town like 15 miles away, and she thought she'd just meet him there. So he hops in with me. I drive him to his car. Then he gets out of his car, and we both drive to the town, and I'm telling him my whole story, and he thinks it's funny, but I don't. And then we get to the bar, and I'm like, oh, hey, girl, what it is? Hi, here's my story. She thinks it's funny. She's apologizing. She's like, no, I'm fine. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to hurt myself. And I'm like, okay. Well, next fucking time, pick up your phone for the people that, love you and care about you, and let them know you're just going on a date with a guy and that you're not going to hurt yourself, so that this poor deputy doesn't have to go out in the middle of nowhere and piss himself 3 different times. So that's one of my stories. Okay, so I've been reading your guys' comments, and maybe I didn't explain the story very good on the creepy story part, but this lady had been missing for 2 to 3 days. She completely ghosted her family. She was from a big city like 3 hours away. The local PD had been trying to call her. She's been ignoring them. They tried pinging her phone, and then she turned off her phone. And then I think they eventually just kind of gave up and just put her in the system as missing. And her family was concerned because she's got a history of self-harm and mental health issues with wanting to hurt herself. So her family reached out to the local PD there and was like, hey, we have no idea where else she would have went or gone, except maybe she went to her grandparents' old farmhouse in this particular county. So they contact me or our office and say, hey, will you send an officer out here at this address? So that's why I go out there. Now, the goats and sheep are in the barn, yes, but they're still taken care of. Her family still, an extended part of the family still owns the property and maintains it. So, like a distant cousin would go out there and feed and water the goats and sheep every day, but he kept them pinned up in the barn because of coyotes. So they could still have access to go outside the barn, but it was like really fenced in and fortified. So they were good, and the music was on really loud to deter coyotes. The lights were on to deter coyotes. She was going to camp out there, and I assume she got spooked or something. She tried lighting the fire, but she said she could never get it going, and she left it, and it was just embers. So I'm assuming since it was windy, the wind got it all, relit again. She had a friend of hers that she knew. She called to come pick her up and take her to the bar. And she was going through some marital problems, some relationship problems, hence where all this, this whole situation started with her mental health well-being. So I assume she wanted a booty call, so she messaged some guy on Tinder or Bumble or whatever and said, hey, meet me at the farmhouse. But then her friend didn't want to take her back there because she's like, you don't know if this guy's a creep, so have him come to the bar. Well, then she couldn't get a hold of him anymore. So he shows up looking for her. She's not there. I'm there. Big misunderstanding. So when me and him go to the bar and I meet her and see her that she's safe and fine and not going to hurt herself, then I cancel her as a missing person and tell her to call her family and let them know she's okay. And then the guy's like, yeah, no, I'm good. She's like, I'm good. And I don't know what happened after that. Never dealt with her again. So I assume it all worked out, I guess. I'm not for sure.
All right, that's the back of the barn, house fire, camper. Okay, well, guys, that's the end of the video. Y'all comment and know exactly what y'all think about this story. To me, I wasn't spooked as all the other stories and whatnot, but y'all comment down below what y'all think, man. And listen, man, at the end of my videos, I always say stay inspired, stay motivated, stay grinding. Until next video, I'm out of here. Peace.